Welcome to this episode of Let's Chat. I'm your host, Chris Revel, coming from the Cat Cave in Warwick, Rhode Island. I'm recording this currently actually in Felicity's Playroom. Modern World, am I right? What a fucking awesome episode today we have. We got Jon Nix. Jon is from Turnstyle Films, and he's a filmmaker whose documentary Beyond Barricades, the story of the anti-flag, is actually out now. I want to give a little fun story about how this episode came to be. I popped on Twitter one day and I saw a friend of the show, Shaun Colón. I believe John was looking to get on podcast or something like that, but he was tweeting about something. So Shaun from Open Ended Films, a friend of the show, tweeted at us. It's like, hey, check out Let's Chat podcast, and I think that one time on tour, another podcast I really love. And I was like, well, Shaun, you got a guest host. So Shaun said yes, and so we set this thing up. And then it kind of spiraled and built into something completely bigger than just this episode. It then turned into Shaun one day gave me a call saying, "Hey, I got this idea." He pitched me this idea of doing a punk rock documentary filmmaker roundtable. That Let's Chat would be, we'd present it. It'd be hosted by me, and he's going to pull some people together. I was like, fucking awesome. I mean, Shaun's a filmmaker. He's made one of my favorite documentaries, The Fat Wreck. And then, so we knew we had Shaun and Jon. So then, within 2 weeks, Shaun and God, the Let's Chat team, I cannot thank you enough. We pulled it off, but we ended up working. You could watch this whole thing right now. It is on YouTube. It's on our Facebook page, and we're gonna get it on audio at some point as well. But so it ended up being myself as the host. We had Shaun Colón, who made a Fat Wreck and Age of Audio, will be coming out soon. Jon, who's Nix, who was just about to release Beyond Barricades, which is really good. And then his other movie he's working on now is called Don't Fall in Love with Yourself, which is about Justin Pearson's from like The Locust. Sounds real interesting. And then Shaun pulled in Taylor Morden, who made Pick It Up Ska in the 90s, which was fucking incredible. And then the last blockbuster, which is, I think, my favorite documentary ever made up ever. Like, it's definitely up there. That will be coming out in December. But I got to see it early. It was fucking incredible. And then to top it off, we had Scott Crawford from fucking Salad Days, which is an incredible movie that all these punk rock docs don't even exist without Salad Days. Or, I mean, just documenting that scene is so important. And then Scott's also got the Cream, America's only rock and roll magazine documentary coming out next. So that experience was insane. Bree Benjamin, Mike Schwartz, Chris Ball, you were an amazing team to work with, the Last Chat team. We put this together in 2 weeks. Shaun, fucking thank you so much for trusting us and working with us and all of your hard work. Any of the graphics you see, I mean, Taylor made a flyer, uh, Benjamin Design made a flyer, Shaun made a trailer, Shaun made uh, he made us credits. It turned into this. I thought at first it was going to be like a Zoom call, but Shaun's like, no, we got to make this look good. And we put, thank you, Chris Ball, especially for putting just all this like, we put in 2 straight weeks of work into getting that round table off the table. And I think it went amazing. I know it went amazing. We did amazing. Everyone was wonderful and so kind and so happy. We got a lot of great feedback. We got some really cool opportunities that we can't talk about yet that have actually sprung from it. I'm just still in awe that it happened, and we'll definitely be doing more like that. So if you have any ideas, let us know. But anyway, so the reason this episode was actually supposed to come out before the roundtable, but I just couldn't get my act together because we were putting a lot of focus on the roundtable. So I decided to wait a week. So you can pre-order the physical copy of Beyond Barricades. A to F Records is going to be having a special DVD bundle for you to check out with the film and a digital downloaded, and that will be on November 6th. Until then, I believe you can watch it on VOD. Beyond Barricades was really good. Like, I'll talk about in this episode too, but I liked Anti-Flag, but I didn't know a ton about them that much. I remember only seeing them at Warped Tour a couple times and really enjoying them. So this documentary, it really sat with me. I really connected to it. I really like Jon's style. I like his work. I thought and I actually like him as a person. He was super fun to hang out and chat with a couple times too. So definitely, he's someone I hope we'll have back on in the future. But if you want to find him online, it's at Jon Nix on Twitter. Make sure you go to turnstylefilms.com and you can see all of his other work that him and all those people have done. Now, a little bit, let's just jump a little bit before we get to it to give you a little update with Let's Chat. Let's Chat is officially grown beyond the podcast. We have a YouTube channel that is really growing, doing some more video stuff. We've got Producer Bree has a great video show with her best bud Nessa called Talking Shit with Bree and Nessa, which is doing really well. And from that, we've also started Let's Chat Presents, which is right now our YouTube, Facebook video, where we will be having on up and coming people in the podcast, YouTube, media world. And that's been really fucking fun, and that's starting to grow. And there's some, again, more stuff I'm not really able to discuss right now, but keep your eyes and ears open. We got some really cool stuff going on. Um, One last thank you to Sean Colón for thinking of us, inviting us to do the punk rock doc roundtable because it was an honor and it's led to some really great stuff. And I hope you like Sean as much as I do because he's definitely a good bud. And more importantly, not only did he guest host this episode, I believe next week's episode he's also guest hosting too. So he's someone you'll be hearing on here this show again. You're stuck with us. Find us online is just let'schatpodcast.net. My personal Twitter and Instagram is Let's Chat Revel, at Let's Chat Podcast and all the things. You can donate on Patreon. Please share the show with a friend, write a review. We do have a donation button. We're going to be finding more ways to support the show out there coming soon. Anyway, let's get to it. I'm super excited about this. When Shaun connected us on Twitter, I was like, all right, because I don't know about you guys, and I'm actually more curious for both of you too. Like, I liked Anti-Flag. It wasn't my favorite band. It was a band like I would see at Warped Tour and stuff, and then I was like, oh, that's cool. And then when I saw they were doing a doc, I was like, well, that's an interesting story. And then when I actually watched the Beyond the Barricades, I was like, oh, now I really like Anti-Flag. And I told this to Shaun, I had the same experience with like a Fat Wreck. Like, I actually never liked Fat Mike. I was just never a Fat Wreck person. My favorite documentaries are ones where I don't really know much about the topic and then they kind of pull me in. And I found that you did that with that one. Actually, just like, what was like your relationship to that band? Like, I can't even imagine making a documentary. And how many, did I read you put like 7 years into this?
Yeah. We've been working on it for a long time. It's like a whole story. So
hey, that's what we're here for.
Yeah.
Oh, no. I don't want to hear any stories.
So I'll do the first part. I really wanted to like Anti-Flag in high school. Like I remember seeing the A New Kind of Army cover, and I was just like, well, yeah, of course, I'm sold. Like, this is going to be a me band. And then I heard it, and now I know that like it's just the production that was throwing me off. Like, I just like could not connect to it. It was too chintzy and tinny for like what I was used to, and I just kind of slept on them, but like quietly, respected them. Like I knew that they were doing good work, and like I agreed with them. Because I listened to plenty of other political bands. And then Chris Stowe, who is their label manager, lived in Cleveland for a while, and we ended up working in the same building, and that's how we met. And we just became friends. Like we realized we had the same friend circle, and we would just talk every day. And then moved back to Pittsburgh, got that job, and then was like, hey, we have hundreds of hours of tapes, like VHSs and mini DV tapes. Like, do you want to do something with this? And so that's when I dove back into them, and I listened to that whole like post label stint that they did, like the People with the Gun, and like all of it like really connected, like between the really like way heavier songs and the pop punk songs. Like I was like suddenly it all like made sense in my brain. And so I was just like, yeah, this is like a thing I can get behind. I think this is a thing that I could do a documentary on. So we met with them in 2013. And I got the tapes, and we just kind of talked it out and decided what we wanted to do with it. And then basically the first year after that was just spent on like importing all the tapes, organizing it, cutting through all that B-roll, like trying to find a story in all of that footage before we even shot any interviews. And then we just shot everything else on and off over the like following years in between a bunch of other projects we were doing.
Yes, so you're like doing jobs and stuff, and then you said you went something about Pittsburgh, so you're not from Ohio.
Oh no, well, I'm from Florida, and then I moved to Ohio when I was like 14.
Was it Lakeland? Okay. Lakeland,
so,
Florida?
Yeah, in Lakeland, Florida.
I read your bio. I took notes. Yeah. I was like, "Where's this guy from?"
Yeah, it's like it's right like dead center in the state. It's like halfway between Tampa and Orlando, and it's it's Florida. So
Yeah, I lived in Coral Springs for about 4 years. My folks live
okay.
down there in Coral Springs, and I have some friends like Gainesville, obviously, because of Fest
Mhm.
and all that kind of stuff. So I'm familiar with where that is on the turnpike there.
Yeah.
So what brought you to Cleveland?
Um, my grandma wanted to move up here after her husband died, so she could kind of like live her last few years with like her other kids
Oh,
that all lived up here still. So we like just all moved up together, like me, her, and my mom.
That's awesome.
I've only been to Cleveland once, and I have to say that 30 Rock episode did it right. I'm from New England. I grew up in Connecticut, but I live in Rhode Island. And like when you grow up in the Northeast, it's really not fair, but you have like you get raised with this implicit bias against the South and the Midwest, and
Mm-hmm.
that's terrible. And then you go there, and you're like, this is beautiful. Everybody's nice. People aren't their state government. It's like that. And I remember just being blown away by Cleveland. Obviously I went to like the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and like
Mm-hmm.
the fucking lake and the food, and I only spent like a day there, but I remember just being like kind of blown away and be like, huh, maybe I'm wrong about the rest of America. Maybe it's all nice.
What, you really
Yeah,
thought that?
When you grow up in the Northeast, I'm not kidding. Like you just get raised to like you shit on the South and you shit on the Midwest, and it's very like subconscious. It's not like outright like fuck the South, but like there's always little jokes about like it's always that thing. No one talks. Yeah, like growing as like when you're a kid, big time. Oh my god, like I mean, if you gave me a map without any of the like of the states, and you had to like fill it in like you see those like little kids do. Like no one in New England could do the Midwest. I'm like,
Yeah,
oh,
fucking
yeah,
Yankees.
yeah. The thing is, I kind of get it. And like I have a handful of friends from the East Coast, like specifically Connecticut, and yeah, no, I mean it's all like fuck you, leave me alone.
yeah. Oh my god, yeah. I always find
which I
you
like.
Midwesterners so friendly, and it really fucks with it kind of messed me up the first, like not a bad way. I was very thrown off by it when I'd be down like the first time I was in North Carolina or like Iowa or even actually Ohio too. I remember like making my friend, we were driving cross country, stop in Sandusky just for Tommy Boy, and everyone knew what we were doing, and they were
Of
not rude
course.
to us about it.
Yeah, I don't know. I think Cleveland's a little angrier than the rest of the state. Like we're not as angry as Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh is like when we were there on a shoot day. The one day we got ran off the road by a guy with a handlebar mustache that like walked out of his car and started trying to threaten us. So
Hey, I got a Pittsburgh story.
go for it.
So it's short. We were trying to shoot a thing, and we were following this band, Wilhelm Scream, to one of their shows, and we were going to film them, kind of doing what you did with the getting out of the van, all that kind of stuff. And we were following them from New York to Pittsburgh, and they wouldn't let us in.
To the venue or to Pittsburgh?
Into Pittsburgh, yeah. Wait, no, I'm thinking of Philadelphia, I think. Never mind. That was a Philadelphia story. I'm sorry. I retract all that. I'll cut that right out.
Which one is is it Philly or Pittsburgh that threw batteries at Santa at the hockey game in like the 90s or 80s? I think it's Philly.
Pittsburgh is where my mom is from. Philly is where it was the place I don't like. I'm sorry. I totally failed that story. All right. Carry on.
I was just gonna say I get the disdain for the Midwest in a sense, because the Midwest is like it's dotted with really rad cities. Like Chicago's awesome, and Indianapolis is pretty rad, and Cleveland's cool, and Columbus is like, especially right now, Columbus is great. They have like this brand new hardcore scene that's full of super talented bands, like on the come up, but like in between that is just garbage, like all the way through, and like especially us being like the always talked about like main swing state of every election. Like it's just like, yeah, we have like 3 cities that are all going to be blue, and the rest of the state is just like just a swath of deep red,
That's
so
Texas,
right?
That's
I
Texas.
definitely see like people looking down on those sections of the state, because it's not even like, oh, they're bad because they're rural. It's like they're bad because like a lot of that stuff is like very regressive, and there's not a lot going on, and they're bitter because there's not a lot of opportunity, but at the same time they're kind of just attacking everyone around them, and they wonder why like no one wants to be there.
Well,
Take that, Cleveland.
I was actually thinking about this today. Is like everyone, where a lot of the middle of the country is like, those coasts, I hate the coasts. And like that's where everyone who has smart works with money, and the main industries of the country are all the tech, everything that generates all the value of America.
Yeah.
Like the biggest things. I mean, it's not only there, but those are where people go to make things happen. It's the people from the middle of the country go there. So like it consists of people not just that are just from the East Coast or the West Coast. It consists of people who are like, and I'm not someone who did that. I chose, I come to Dallas, but I'm nothing against those. And I was born in New York, you know what I mean?
That's the funny part about going to somewhere like LA is like half of LA's population is from Ohio. I mean, with last time I was out there, the only sports gear I saw was Cavaliers sports gear everywhere. Like I saw like 20 jerseys while I was out there. It was like, no Lakers, no nothing. Okay, I guess that's it.
No, maybe they hate them because they're like, you left us behind. It's like, well, it doesn't make any sense. I mean, although I am one of those people that encourages, I think it should be encouraged for people to leave those, necessarily New York. And I don't think that's a good self-sort. I think, those people should, be doing, I think people should be making movies everywhere. I like, you're up there and you said Ohio, that's right? You're in Ohio.
Cleveland, baby.
And Cleveland, I'm in Dallas making punk rock documentaries. Like, I mean, it's I appreciate those places though. That's where all the people who give money for arts and music and care about all that stuff,
I mean, I'm mixed on the whole thing. I get the call of the coast, but at the same time, it's just like, you're just going to leave like a cultural desert if like every cool person from every place just leaves instead of trying to like build something there. And then at the same time, like you aren't going to get a diversity of stories. Like I definitely agree with you. And like, you definitely need to tell stories in different places. Like I'm interested in Dallas stories because there aren't a lot of Dallas stories. And it's the same way with the Midwest. Like we can't all, like every movie can't just be about like sad people in brownstones in New York.
Right. Yeah. No, right. I mean, it's like, have you seen High Maintenance?
No, but I know of it.
No.
You guys haven't? I hadn't seen it before I had to. So it's about like a guy who sells weed in New York, but it's all these different stories of people in New York, and they're not necessarily all like, they're tangentially connected sometimes, or sometimes their stories like converge, but it's really just like these separate stories of people, but it's all just mostly people, New York people, like actors and, and like public radio people and like all that kind of stuff. And it's great. It's cool. It's well done, but it's like, I agree with what you're saying is that there's maybe if people told stories, what you're doing, like, and not going to the coast, as I just don't understand the hatred of the coast, but I do agree with, I don't understand with hatred of any particular area, because almost anywhere you go, you find mostly good people. I mean, even in LA, there are mostly good people. And by the way, I'll just say this about Rhode Island. Some of the nicest people I have ever met in my life are from like Rhode Island area and up in New Bedford. New Bedford. Straight up, like some of the coolest communities. I mean, after hanging out with some of those communities, I was like, I don't know, West Coast, great, pretty cool, but East Coast, it's like real.
I love having like visited both quite a bit in the last few years, just for movies and stuff like that. And West Coast is great because of weather. It's just 70 and beautiful every single day.
Was.
But yeah,
they had 120 degrees last summer with fires everywhere. I don't know.
But yeah, no, I feel like I couldn't live there. No, it's fine. I feel like I couldn't live there though, like because it's not angry enough. I love the like disaffected, detached anger of the East Coast. It's the very like, do whatever you want to do, leave me out of it. I'm staring down at my feed or my phone. I don't want to talk to you. And like everyone's busy doing their own thing. And I really like that sort of like hyper focused, like disassociative ambition of it.
But it's like
where like LA always like feels. It reminds me of a tourist town. LA actually reminds me a lot of growing up in like Florida, like tourist towns.
Yes.
Where it's a lot of like, come on in, give us your money. What do you like? We'll make whatever you like. It's a lot of like schmoozy. I don't want to call it fakeness because it's like a cliche. I think it's a little more complicated than that. But
That's the quick way to say it, though. It doesn't feel authentic, and maybe rather it doesn't, or as authentic. I was talking to somebody about this because I was raised in the South. I was raised in Savannah, Georgia, and there's just a friendliness, and that's why I think I moved to Dallas, because we lived here for a little bit, and then I moved to Florida with my folks, but then I moved back to Dallas, and my sister lived in LA, and I had family in New York, and so I could have gone to either of those places because I wanted to do music, and I was like, I'll go to Dallas because I went to school to be an audio engineer, and so I went. There was this studio here that turned into a school, and it's where like Stevie Ray Vaughan and a bunch of famous bands had recorded, and it seemed like a good idea at the time. But I didn't go to LA. You know what I mean? I didn't go and I didn't plan on being a filmmaker per se. But I'll say this: if you want to be a screenwriter for TV, if you want to be a crew person on major films, you have to go to like either Atlanta or Los Angeles to be on those crews, like, you know, for the most part on bigger movies. But I think for what we do, it doesn't.
Yeah, definitely.
We're non-specific to any particular area because we can do it anywhere. But and that's because we're kind of in charge of our own destinies in a lot of ways. But if you're an actor, it's really challenging to not go to LA. I mean,
oh yeah. I feel like they're the people where you have to, where I think other people can kind of get stories off the ground other places, and especially without the rent costs.
Right, and that's my thing. I mean, I got a pretty decent lifestyle considering I'm a independent filmmaker. You know.
Oh yeah.
What is it? There's a thing that says if you want to be a filmmaker, marry a lawyer, or marry a doctor, or marry marry someone who's gonna have a stable job so that you can get health insurance.
Definitely.
But anyway, we lost.
No, I mean, I feel the same way with Cleveland. I mean, we're like one of the poorest cities in the country, but we're also one of the cheapest cities to live in. And like when you try to say what you pay for rent or like a mortgage out here for what size it is, like people just like lose their mind on the coast. Like I just remember getting into these conversations when we were filming out there, and we're just like, are you fucking kidding me? Like that's what you're getting away with. I'm like, yeah, it's super low overhead, and it's like you can find like a well-paying job, then like it's not uncomfortable to live here.
Well, and now like I had been doing Lyft and Uber for the last few. In fact, shooting a movie when I was in New Bedford, the reason I knew everyone's so nice is because at the time Lyft let you go anywhere. You could do Lyft anywhere that the state laws allowed. And so when we worked on this movie, it has the guys in a Wilhelm Scream and a few other creatives, and we were up in that part of the country for like a month, and I couldn't afford to not work for a month, completely. So what I did is like in the mornings I would do Lyft in the particular town we were in, since we were 3 weeks in New Bedford. So I would go down to Rhode Island, about 30 minutes away, and do Lyft for a few hours, and then head back up, and we start shooting.
Nice. That's super resourceful.
We went up. I drove my car into Canada because we went up to I didn't do Lyft in Canada, but I did it in Detroit, and it's much more. I actually did in California too. Like I drove everywhere because we would film. I would just go I'll go. We got downtime. I'll go for a few hours, just drive around.
That's sweet, man.
But since all this COVID thing started happening back in March, I stopped doing that because for obvious reasons. But I just found out Google and a bunch of other big tech companies are offering these certification courses, and they're honoring them as 4-year degrees. Like if you go through this course, certain courses that Google offers, if you go to apply, you don't have to go to. They're going to treat it like a 4-year degree, And
gotcha.
And now that a lot of their stuff is remote, I'm like, well, I'm home. I can go online, do a couple hours of learning, do a couple hours of editing. And then here come when unemployment runs out or whatever.
Yeah.
Rather than go back to driving, which I could do, a little bit if I wanted to, but it's like that remote thing. I don't, kind of tying it into what we're talking about. You don't have to be any particular place. You can, there's so many, and even with actors, I think that's going to become less of a thing because a lot of auditions, I think for the next few years are going to be, Zoom, Skype auditions.
Yeah. I mean, it's, silver linings to everything that's going on. I do feel like it's going to force companies into actually taking steps forward to make things more flexible for their employees. And like the idea of like keeping people under their thumb and you have to have them there every second of the day and watch them. And like that whole like weird paternalistic, like got my eye on you, time to lean, time to clean kind of thing is going to go out the window just because there's just no way to control it. And the thing is that people end up being more productive anyway when they feel like they're not being threatened all the time.
I can't work that way.
And like locked in. Yeah, no, neither can I. I immediately get resentful and then I just like dig a hole.
Right. I don't want to do anything now. I would have done everything on my own volition. Like if we make movies, you'll work to the ends of like, God, making movies is so fucking hard. I voluntarily spend hours and hours of every week of my life working on a thing that I don't know if it's going to work for me. I'll do your work that you're paying me consistently to do. It's one of my first jobs was tech support. I think I'm older than you. I'm like 40, so it was back when gateway computers existed.
Yeah, I'm 32.
Okay, so not too far, but yeah, like you probably gateway computers had even tech support in the U.S. kind of gone away for the most part, but I had a point to that. The tech support I had something I was going to say, but now I lost it. The train left and I was not on board. But I was going to ask you, bring it back to like filmmaking stuff. Like what was the thing? Are you one of those kids that was like, I want to be a filmmaker when I grow up? And I saw this movie, I saw Jaws, or I saw like Jurassic Park, and I knew I wanted to be a filmmaker. Or is it, I want to do like, was this like a long time thing, or was this something that you eventually found that you wanted to do?
No, it was there were like variations on it. Like I kind of vaguely wanted to be an artist, and like for a while as a kid, after like Disney used to put all of these like making of featurettes at the end of their VHSs. And so I remember for a while getting really into the idea of becoming like a Foley artist because they had like all the old guys with like coconuts being like, this is how you make horses.
Yeah.
But it's always been kind of in the same realm. And so it's never really been anything. It's not weirdly, with you asking, I feel like it's not really that much of a conscious decision. I was just like, well, this is just what I'm going to do.
Right. I did music for the longest time, and then there was an event that happened that kind of like 10 years of doing a recording studio and our band and everything had kind of come to a abrupt end. And I was like, well, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do next? I was like, well, I've always wanted to do film, because I did audio and film, like audio visual stuff in high school, but my focus was more on the audio side. But we had to, in the class, you had to like make a short edit and make a short film, like not a short film, but like little like animation things. And I was like, I was doing it because I wanted to do audio. But after that was over, I was like, I would like to do more visual stuff. And then I had it just happened very quickly. Like that Fat Rec Doc was like, I did 3 music videos, and I was the marketing director for this like talent development school where like Demi Lovato and Jessica Simpson and a bunch of other like, and that Kids Bop, Kids Bop.
Yeah, of course.
Like I taught briefly for like, a week or two, the Kids Bop Kids social media stuff and things like that. But they did music videos because I brought them in house. And so I was producing them, and then I started shooting some stuff. But we did like 3 music videos. The 3rd music video was a $20,000 music video.
Jesus. I've never had that budget.
This was within this realm. It was a bunch of rich people, like, you know what I mean? It was like people are spending on a 12-year-old spending $30,000 a year for the school. Like these were like some of the richest parents in Dallas.
Yeah,
you
it's
know?
like the Friday video.
Yes.
Yes.
But like the people that I was working for on this particular video, they had a lot of money, but you wouldn't have known it. They were like one of those more humble families, and it was a country music video. But we had it was a location shoot. I had hired a production company to work with us, you know, because I was producing it, and I had my buddy directing it, and we had like catered food, like pies, like custom pies, like all kind of like 3 meals during the day. The crew was staying at places, like it was a location, you know, location. We had a car and a motorcycle, like all this kind of stuff. And I was like, oh, this is awesome. Obviously, that's not how they always go.
Yeah.
But during making that, we made a little, like a behind the scenes little making of featurette. And that was like the first thing that I had made that was like a mini documentary. You know, it was like had like a story of us shooting the thing. And the family, they screened the video at a movie theater. But because I had made this thing, they were like, hey, let's screen that before. So I got to see this thing that I made on big screen in front of an audience. And we had some jokes in it, and the jokes landed. And it was like, that's, you know, that feeling when an emotional thing, a beat lands, and you're in the back watching it, and it lands, and you're like, dance puppets. You know, you get that, you're like, wow, this is amazing. Like this thing that I worked on, that I was hoping this moment would happen, here it's happening, and I'm getting the reaction that I hoped for.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then
how's the? Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
How's that? Because I know you're like at the end of your run with this movie coming out. I know October 3rd. Like, what's that experience been for you, screening it and like getting to the end of the marathon?
Oh,
especially because you can't do the theaters like we.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't screened it for anyone yet, other than like people that I've shown it to. So I haven't had to like deal with that on this project, as far as like seeing people's like reactions and just like slumping down in my seat. Like I've done.
Is that good or bad, do you think?
I'm sorry?
Is that like a good thing, you think, or is that a bad thing?
Oh, I just have like bad anxiety. Like, so I don't like it. I don't want to be there and like watch these people watch the thing I made. I want to like,
that sounds so uncomfortable.
I want to like just crouch down in the corner of the theater with my head and like hand in my head. Like, and even like if it does well, like, I mean, you know, we've had plenty of short films like play at festivals and stuff. Like our one, this one called Draw Hard ended up playing in like a giant shorts screening that had like over 600 people, was like totally sold out, and like did great. And I was still just like sweating bullets and just like couldn't watch the screen, like even during the other pieces.
Wow.
So
I know
like
that feeling for sure.
Yeah. But then, I mean, it was fine. Like people liked it. And then we did, in like weirdly, like the Q&A at the end is like the easiest. Like I can stand up in front of a group of people and talk. I'm not bothered by that. It's like the thing that I made. Like I don't like that.
Well, that's because it's very. I was gonna say it's because you're very. It's like you're putting. It's a vulnerable moment. Like you're really, because like, especially like if you worked on this movie for 7 years, you know, off and on for 7 years. I'm sure it wasn't like every day you were shooting.
Oh God, no. Yeah.
That you lived with it that long, because I definitely, you just definitely made me feel better.
No, it always takes too long. Like every single thing takes. I wish that I could like be one of those like Soderbergh types that get out like 3 things in a year and they're all great and polished.
Yeah, but if you have money,
so long.
If you have money,
I don't know.
It's money. It's money. If you have money and you have
money and time. Yeah.
Because if you have money, you can build think of the people you could hire to work on it full time. Like, cause imagine if you're full circle of all the people that you work with on your film stuff, you were able to be like, all right, everybody, stop what you're doing. Like, I got money to pay for everybody for the next year. All we got to do, I mean, COVID times, not, you know, you know, hereafter, that's not the factor. The whole world didn't shut down. You can go and shoot stuff, because you can go, and especially depending on what the documentary is. I mean, but I don't know if with this documentary you could have done it much faster.
I mean, if it's weird because like because this thing was almost done like 3 years ago, and it was
nothing
near
happened
the
in 2016, right? Nothing that would have impacted your documentary.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. I mean, like, and I mean, honestly, it was ready to go even before it was ready to go in a form before
Sure.
the election, and then it kind of like it didn't get released because I was very like, we should probably put it out before the election, and just kind of couldn't get like final sign-offs, and it was sort of like, yeah, I don't know, let's just kind of wait it out,
Right.
and then like the election happened and everyone's just like, oh God, what do we do now? And so we just, started shooting new stuff because if anything, I think it's more important now than it would have been then. Like, I think the movie's going to do better and people are going to connect way more to it. I mean, people are so much more radicalized now than they were 3-4 years ago.
Oh my God.
No, I think it's perfect timing. I think it's anti-flag. I mean, it's like, to me, that when I hear that, I used to think of the American flag, and now I think of those massive Trump flags. Because I was saying this to someone. I was saying this, I think, on Twitter. I was like, Trump supporters are. If you go look, they're not Americans. I mean, they're not American, or not. They're not. Their primary thing isn't America, because if you look who has the bigger flag, when you see those trucks going by, the American flag isn't always the biggest one. The Trump flags.
I mean, I've seen people fly it around here, like where it's above the American flag,
It's
which
above
is
it.
just, it's like a total. These are just like basic flag etiquette rules. Like, they get all pissed when people burn a flag, in some foreign country somewhere without context, and like, but then they can just fly that above it. That's so much worse.
No, so I've been going all along. I'm like, the most un-American people are Trump supporters. If you really like America and Americans, then why would you support that someone who's like it is bigger than America and is using America as a platform for themselves? Sure. It's pure. Yeah. It's pure, unadulterated. It's the distillation of everything that's wrong with capitalism in a human being.
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh my God.
Question for you, John, though, because you had to do quite the juxtaposition to like cover 9/11 plus the election and then the personal tragedy of the band. And I still walk away from your film and I still feel hopeful for the world. And like, I don't know how you did that. So like, what was your like going into that? Like, how did you not go down I'm gonna be honest, how did you not do the Trump rabbit hole? Because it's, especially with the liberal type, myself included, it's so easy just to be like, that could have just been, you could have made a whole documentary about that and maybe get that dollar, like get that like clickbait shit, but you didn't do that. And I found it so fascinating that like, I don't know, in a movie about like that, was it Chris number 2? Is it Chris number 2 who lost his sister, which was breaking, and then the 9/11 stuff, and then the election, and then somehow I come out of that thing be like, all right, you know what? These motherfuckers who I probably ignored have inspired a generation of people, including like the coat drives, and like, what was your balance with that, man? How did you do that? How do you make art?
I don't know. I mean, I kind of went into it fairly cynical. Like, I definitely think, like, I definitely thought that like protest could do something, but I feel like no one would ever be committed enough to it to make it do something. So I was kind of coming from almost an angle of like, I don't know if any of this like works or is worthwhile. And I was ready to be like combative about it, like, and more critical, honestly, of their outlook. But I mean, as we just got like deeper and deeper into it, it just like, no, it's like, these are actually affecting shit, especially once you started getting into like, Black Lives Matter starting, and a lot of other Women's March and all that stuff that like really started up. As far as it not being
corporate money and buying your own studio, like, which is just a brilliant. I remember listening to one of them, I think on Going Off Track podcast, talking about that and how they use like corporate money to like change laws and stuff. And that was the era. I remember people calling Anti-Flag a sellout because they signed to a major. And like watching your doc too, it kind of made me think. I was like, all right, so we can have money and have nice things. It's what we do with it.
Chumbawamba.
Chumbawamba. Chumbawamba is a great example.
Wait.
Fucking crass, bro. Crass.
Is this a joke?
No, Chumbawamba is it's a group. The guys who made that song, they're a group of anarchists, and they.
What?
Yeah, it's like this is. You don't know about Chumbawamba? So
I honestly thought you were kidding for the first time. Like, John, your joke is not landing.
Do you remember the band? Do you remember Crass? Do you ever heard of Crass?
The name sounds familiar, but nothing. I'm like.
It's like they're old school, like British anarch punk, like they're like Jesus died for his own sins, not mine. Or like a band from the Roxy. Okay, never much for playing there. You know what I'm talking about?
I know what you're talking about.
Oh, good. Thank God. Thank God. That was a treat for all you listeners. But Crass, like those guys, they're all anarchists, and they've been doing music forever and know music and knew how to write a hit song. And so they wrote Chumbawamba. You get every element of a pop song, perfect. Drinking song. They took all the money from that song and invested it back into pro anarchist organizations that they supported. Yeah, so what they did is they're like, we're going to
including tons of Coca-Cola money, because they had a huge Coca-Cola not sponsorship. Like they licensed it to Coca-Cola and got like an obscene amount of money
and a bunch of movies.
Yeah.
It was like that Chumbawamba song is huge, and like especially like that was a brilliant move. And like I saw a lot of that in like the anti-flag like during that part. I was like, oh shit, this is. But it's not every group has that opportunity presented to them, and I think they're smart dudes. I mean, I think they're really smart dudes. I thought they were pretty smart. I mean, I always thought they were smart dudes, but I mean, definitely from the movie, I have a even greater respect for them, because I we talked to Chris number 2 in the Fat Rec Doc, and we were lucky. We went and filmed, recorded some group vocals with them when they came to Dallas before we did the thing. I think it was one of the most recent albums. It was awesome. It was cool. But even with that and kind of knowing them a little bit, I had no idea the depth of what they had gone through when they did their major label thing. I think I had forgotten that they had gone to a major record label.
Yeah, same.
Yeah. I mean, well, that's the joke of all that 90s stuff, I think, is like, I think it really shows the privilege of the 90s, like independent of Anti-Flag or any other band that I like. I mean, I think that like being anti-people, like making money at a thing that they're good at, or like signing to a major label, or like doing a studio movie or whatever, I feel like all that comes from like this weird detached privilege of just like, no, like you need money to actually create things. Like, do you just want people to like have basement recordings forever? Or like for me, like I don't want to have to make movies for like nothing on weekends for the rest of my life. Like I'd like to be able to have like a career and make like at least a living off of it, like nothing insane.
Sure. Make some pro QAnon documentaries. You'll make a lot of money.
Oh God. Oh, what I was gonna say before is you were asking about how like why I didn't go into Trump, and honestly I just didn't want to look through all that like news footage. Honestly, I just didn't feel like I was going to get much out of it anyway.
I appreciate that as a watcher.
It's all the same sentence fragments over and over again. But also like there's not a lot. I feel like there's not a market for it. I feel like he's so disgusting to people that it's not like the Bush era where there's all of this like subterfuge where there could be like a documentary that came out about like the inner machinations of Washington like every other month. There's so many anti-Bush documentaries.
I agree.
And I just feel like there's not a market for that now.
Well, I'll say, like, I'm working on the podcast documentary, and there's a part that we go into about doing a podcast documentary, but we go into the protests up in Berkeley with the Antifa and the Patriots Prayer got into it. There was a podcast journalist there that jumped in and kind of saved this guy, his whole story. And so as I was working on it, like I'm like, and because I have this standing thing that I don't want to put him in any of my movies, like at all. Like, I mean, not that you don't like. It's just like it's not like ignoring it. It's just like I don't want to like. It's like, okay, we all know, we all know, and like there's a like. He's in it a little bit because the guy's called a Trump supporter, but I had the footage of him like talking about like they're good because we go to talk about Charlottesville because like the setup for what happened in this place, and I had in there the footage of him, Trump talking. And I was like, I don't need that. I don't need it.
Everyone knows.
Like, and I don't need to hear him talk. I don't need to see him. I don't need to hear him. You know what I mean?
For sure.
And
for sure,
it's a conscious decision because I don't want I think that. The worst thing right now is that we're talking about him.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
let's just leave his name out of the rest of this conversation.
Okay. So to finish the
Sorry,
question.
sorry.
Oh no, it's fine. As far as like going positive with it, it's I feel like I don't have a good answer for it because I mean I guess I do. I'm just kind of like a fairly cynical person. Like I feel like everything is like pretty absurd and like not good. But I guess the thing is, I feel like the weird underhanded positive to everything that's happening is that it's finally making conservative values like blatantly obvious, and like people always say like he says the quiet part out loud. Like it's just like the thing that he said about like, oh, if we don't count the ballots then I won't have to transfer the power. It's just like, shut the fuck up, you're not supposed to say that part. And so I feel like it's finally letting all these people who were like giving them plausible deniability and like allowing them to just like, oh, come on, he has to be a decent guy. I mean, look at him. He has a family, he has a daughter, like whatever, that kind of stuff. I feel like all that's out the window because it's just like they've all been revealed as monsters. And I think that that's what's radicalized everyone so much. So I feel like it is a net positive. Like I mean, it's getting worse every day, but at the same time, I feel like it's kind of allowing them as like a party and as ideas to die off. I mean, if you look at public opinion polls, they have no grounding in people that are under 50. Like and like they're losing support at people that are older. I mean, the ideas feel like they're literally going to die off. I feel like there's always going to be an insane, crazy, like conservative faction, no matter what. It always is like part of a subculture. But I feel
we'll never
like
have an anti-flag if we don't have that. I mean, if there's like no Reagan.
Hey, I mean, you know what? It's the thing that
There will always be a flag.
I was just gonna say, I feel like it's like this.
There will
I feel like
always
it's
be
like what
another
the stand-up
flag.
comedians have said before. I feel like it's what the stand-up comedians have said before, where like, oh man, you guys are gonna be so sad when he's out of office because you're not gonna have all this easy material. And they're like, I can talk about literally anything else. I don't have to do this. Like,
there are so many other horrible things to be focused on. It pulls focus away from every other terrible thing that's going on, and it ends up being, and that's the show. I mean, that's the show. That's
so like.
I have a question.
as long as it's not about 45, I'll allow it.
No, it's about the movie actually, because I want to say like those parts, the dramatic parts were really awesome, and like was really the
thank you.
Was the dramatic part at the end was unexpected. But I'll tell you what I really loved, and I feel a large kinship, was when you were home with his family, when it's with his mom and dad. Best part. So like I'm like when I watched that part, like there's this other movie I'm working on. It's called Lifer. It's about the Wilhelm Scream guys. You know Wilhelm Scream, right?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. The documentary we're making about them is about it. We interviewed we stay in that. We stay in that space. The like with the family. That's the movie. The movie's in that space. We're talking about. It's about all the support systems it takes for like a mid-level band to be able to exist, because it's not just the fans. There has to be all these other people, and New Bedford has a really interesting story with the skate. But anyway, I should say like that. That was so cool to hear about his parents, like, and talk to them, and like know, like seeing where he came from was so fucking rad.
I grew up in a Unitarian family, and they never get play anywhere. So I was like, "Oh my fucking god!"
We're technically Unitarians. Our household. My
nice.
wife is like my. I don't really claim anything in particular, but like I go with her to that.
Yeah.
Like,
well, the UUs are like my dad. Well, my dad's side, but like the joke with the Unitarian Universalist, for those who aren't familiar, is there's like a joke that explains the religion very well. It's like the only time you hear God's name in the Unitarian Church is when the janitor falls off the ladder.
Well, I don't know. Like that hasn't been my experience, to be honest with you. Like it's very like they talk about Jesus, but in a different way, and they do talk about. It's just very inclusive. It's just inclusive of all kind of thoughts, I like the philosophy behind it. I just don't feel like I was raised Catholic, and I just feel the least like, and I didn't have like a terrible experience, but in a church, I just don't feel I'm bored out of my gourd, and I don't feel that connection with the grader or whatever. Like I'm like, when are we leaving?
Yeah. No, I was raised Catholic too. I actually went to Catholic school from like kindergarten to 8th grade.
Same.
So,
all right.
yeah, cool.
Nice.
Yeah. So I was an altar boy and everything. I remember.
Altar boy.
But yeah, no, I don't know. It's funny. I remember, like, I used to take like sermons very serious. I'm like just generally into like philosophy or like political theory, just thinking about like ideas as much as I can. And I remember like the moment I stopped believing God in church, because I just remember, I don't even remember what the sermon was about. I just remember being like, oh, I don't think I believe in any of this. I was like 10, 11 years old.
Right.
So I'm just being like, well, I'm just gonna keep doing what I'm doing, like, because I just liked the stability that being an altar boy like gave me. I was in a pretty rocky household situation, so like I just liked it as a consistent thing. But yeah, I just remember it was weird, I guess, being encouraged to look more into those ideas the more you just end up falling out of it. I feel like as the experience of a lot of Catholics.
Oh, that's definitely.
Did that lead you to punk rock, you think?
I was kind of always into heavier music. I mean, like I got like really into like new metal and stuff in like middle school because I was angry.
Who? Name three.
Are we all the same age? I'm 36.
32.
Okay, so we're gonna have some. All right, so yeah, we'll probably have some. I mean, new metal's how I found punk.
So name three that you like, just off the top of your head.
I was super into Korn. I was super into Slipknot, and I really like Cold Chamber.
Oh, big truck. Big truck. Big truck.
For some reason, last like 4 or 5 episodes, new metal has been coming up, and for some reason, they have this ferocity to keep defending it. And I will still go to bat to say the first Limp Bizkit album is actually really good, and Head PE, I still fucking love. I still listen to the first Head PE.
Korn is such an interesting band because they really created their own sound that was like. There's not very. I mean, there were bands. Cold Chamber was similar. There was like a genre that was similar, but they were like. I remember getting on a VHS cassette. It was a thing of videos that weren't on MTV. It was a bunch of videos. So I got it from a friend, and on it had that Korn video. And like when I could just like that thing where you hit the cowbell, ding 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 ding. Like you hear that, you're like the entire song. It's like one of those things where it clicked. And that was like it was so. I remember when I heard that, I was like. I've never heard anything like this. It sounds so different, It was like,
yeah. I mean, it's doing a lot different musically, but and it's full of like a crazy idea. I mean, a lot of them don't connect, but it's full of a ton of ideas, and there's definitely choices being made in that music. It's like a bummer to me because I feel like it's just drowned out by like all the garbage when there's like some decent to great stuff in there.
Even like Killswitch.
Find it.
Killswitch's Wage is great.
Yeah, but they're not really new metal. They're like actual metal.
I
always think of them as like metalcore.
They're metal to us though, but to like a Hot Topic fan, like they're like to the people who aren't of this world, like because you'll find. Let me reframe that. Howard, like they're from New England, so you'll find their stuff in a Hot Topic, so they might not be as big everywhere else.
Oh no,
they have like. They were like Dropkick Murphys are like the Beatles in New England, but then everywhere else they're like they're not big, but like when they're in Boston they're like the Beatles.
By the way, what a cool name. That's a cool name. Killswitch Engage. But there was a band that I thought there was an industrial band that had the same name, but I thought slightly better, and they called it the Killswitch Click.
Nice.
So you got the Click because they're a group, but also Killswitch, and they would do it Killswitch ... Click. Because you killed.
So John, I know you said you grew up with like heavy music. Is this what leads into your project for doing the Don't Fall in Love with Yourself?
Well, and like when I was in high school, I don't remember exactly how, but I just started getting into like weirder stuff, like I found like Blood Brothers, and then that led to The Locust, and so I just got kind of like pretty obsessed with that whole San Diego scene. And obviously just kept following all those bands and like doing deep dive stuff. And then I met Justin Pearson. And I like was probably drunk, and I like Facebook messaged him like 9 years ago and was just like, man, your band means a lot to me. And he's just been rad ever since. Like, I mean, he was just like, sweet dude, I really appreciate it. Next show we play near you, like come hang out, we'll hang. And so I did. I went to go see his band All Leather, which is like this really obnoxious like electronic band, and they played at this basement venue that with like 3 people and me.
Nice.
So which is a bummer. I mean, that's the thing, is like Ohio's a great town for concerts, but like if they're not into a thing, like there's no one there. But yeah, so we just kept in touch, and then a few years ago I just was finally like, can I just make a movie about you? Like, because I'm looking for a new project. This one was kind of winding down, and I figured, like, regardless, like, we're not going to be shooting a ton of it, so it's going to come out when it's going to come out, and like we'll probably just kind of keep like massaging the edit. And so I just started working on that.
Was this like your passion project? Because like, are you doing this off of the back of Beyond Barricades?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, that, and we shot a movie in between it with another local production company called Powerbomb.
The wrestling one? Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like a wrestling
good.
thriller about like an obsessed fan that like kidnaps his like favorite up and coming wrestler.
So you don't sleep, huh?
That's
Not really.
Feature. That's a feature, right?
Yeah. But I mean, there was like a ton of work that went into that. Like pretty much like nonstop shooting on a really tight schedule, and then I was assistant directing, and I also edited it.
You worked with a screenwriter, or did you co-write it?
We worked with this other local production company named Sickening Pictures. So it was co-written by a guy named Zach Shieldwalker and BJ Colangelo.
And you directed?
They co-directed it.
Oh, okay. Sweet.
But yeah, so like I was just kind of like exhausted after working on that because we were trying to get it out on a deadline, and I was like, I just need to like do something self-indulgent and for me, and so like that's why I did it. And then it's thankfully other people were into it. Like we ran a pretty successful Kickstarter at the beginning of the year. So, and we were supposed to finish that. We had a whole trip planned out for our final interviews out in California in April, and so like they were scheduled for like a week after lockdown happened. So we had to cancel that.
I'm not laughing at you. I'm just
laughing.
No,
it's fine.
Like they're scheduled for April. I feel, I'm right there with you. Like 80% done on a thing, and like
Pause.
I mean, for me, I appreciate the pause in a way, because it gave me some time to catch up on another. Because I was working on 2 projects continuously, and that's not a great idea. Too much, especially because it's a great idea at the beginning, you know. It's a great idea when you're just shooting because you can just go for a week and whatever. But it's a terrible idea when you get to post, because it's like the post just takes hours and hours of straight. It's all in the back. It's such the iceberg, you know. Like it's like the shooting is like the fun, mostly fun, kind of like collecting stuff. I compare it to building a house, and the part of shooting is collecting the materials, like the wood, all the pipes, all that kind of stuff. But the editing is putting the house together, which, you know, you can just have a pile of stuff, which is important. You have to have materials, but editing is where the serious work comes in.
Yeah, and I feel like it's more emotional than people probably think about. I mean, like you kind of have to be in the right headspace for whatever kind of sequence you're doing. I mean, if you're doing a heavy sequence, I mean, we have heavy sequences in all of our documentaries, like, you know, Chris talks about his sister in this one. There's stuff in the Justin one that's fairly tragic, and then there's also stuff in other ones we've done. But it's like, if you're not like down to listen to like 20 minutes of a person like talk about the worst thing that's happened to them, like you're not going to get any work done that day on that kind of thing. So you need to know like where to put yourself. And even then, like sometimes I've just like stared at my computer for like hours, just like hoping something would like come to me, and just be like, well, nothing got done.
I have to yell at myself. Like just like I'm like, it's gonna suck. So just put something down.
Absolutely.
I was like, connect two or 3 people talking about something.
Editing is a lot like writing. And again, I think it's a thing that no one talks about. Like it's very much like the fear of the blank page when it comes to certain sequences, and like it just like if you're just not in the right headspace, sometimes you just like can't do it. Like there are like days that I wake up and I know like, okay, cool, I'm gonna write for like hours today, and then there are days I wake up and I'm just like, it's nothing. Like I can send emails, I can do other stuff, but there's no way I'm gonna be able to like be creative.
I've been trying to do that thing where like you like have a set time that I'm gonna work on the edit, I just have to get the progress done. But what I've been trying to do lately is do like the follow your bliss kind of thing. Like rather than try to work on what am I most excited to like see? You know what I mean? Like, or like, I think I was talking about this before. I'm working on that podcast documentary, and I have all this stuff with Ira Glass that I'm working on, and it's going to be real challenging to kind of like craft and get to this where I need to go and weave in this other person. But so I get overwhelmed with that. But then I'm also like, let me find where Ira Glass was on The Simpsons and grab that, and go find when he was on like High Maintenance. Like, let me go ahead and just get that, and like, and so I put it on a timeline and start putting it together. Like, and then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, what's that music that they have in This American Life all the time? And so then I'm like on a Spotify list and listening through, and and then I'm like, and then all of a sudden I'm like, okay, oh, I found the song, because there's a certain thing that really feels like This American Life to me, you know, even though they use a bunch of different songs. So I grab it and I threw it in there, and I'm like, okay. And so now all of a sudden I have that. I'm like, okay, well, I got this. It's like, and you like you play it like a few times, like, okay, that's cool. Like, it's like, but now I need to say, okay, who is Ira? Like, and that's all of a sudden. So then I'm like writing. It is writing. It's writing. Like what we do. Like, I'm sure you had a different experience on doing the feature where it's not as much writing. You're more massaging and kind of like, it's more timing, pacing, and getting the right emotional moments right of the actors, and making sure like have a cohesive tone, and but on the documentary side, you're like, I mean, I don't know, what do you transcribe all your stuff? Are you a transcriber?
No, I just have to feel it. I've tried to do that before, and I just feel like it's a big waste of time. Like, I kind of feel the same way about storyboarding, unless like there are very specific ways that you need to like communicate something visually. Like otherwise, like I know how to like kind of write it out and like explain it to a person. Like, I mean, our entire crew has been working together for 10 years now, so I mean, we kind of have like a secret twin language at this point. Like, everyone knows what everyone's talking about, and it's kind of one of those things where we can just mumble at each other, and it's just like, yep, got it.
Well, I mean, but when you're editing, like as you're finding stuff in your interviews, like you scrub the interview, or
what I usually do is I kind of look at it as like, okay, I'm not making a movie, I'm making a bunch of different sequences, and then I'm figuring out how those sequences go together. And so generally how I set it up is I just create a ton of different sequences and timelines, and then you just go through everything and you go like, this is gonna go for here, this is gonna go for here, and then that way I can decide what I want to work on, and I can organize all that stuff. So it's not just kind of this like vague sea that's over in that sidebar where you have all your assets. Like, I know that like these are the 30 things that I want to focus on, and I can always add more stuff to it. But otherwise, like, that's where I'm at. And so I'm locked into the certain, a maximum of phrases that I could put into this.
So I'm full on a transcriber. But I don't use it. I don't like write necessarily with the transcription, because like it doesn't have the emotion of what someone's saying. But what it lets me do is like, especially when I'm doing my interviews, I usually go through and I have, like major areas or topics of, discussion, and I let things usually flow conversationally. So like where that ends up in the interview might be different than where my notes are. And so what I do is, especially because there's this great software called Descript, and it's $14 a month, and it does this transcribing within like, like a 2-hour interview, doing like 10 minutes. And it has an AI system that does it like right there on your computer. So it's $14 and I can do as many interviews as I want. But before the other movies, I actually, like on the Fat Rec doc, I had people volunteer and transcribed all 70 interviews. They transcribed.
Jesus, so many.
I know, we did 120 interviews. 70 of them were transcribed because they're the main ones. But what I found, what we did with that is I take all the transcribed things and I put them in one big Google Doc, and then I'm able to do keyword searches. So like on this podcast doc, anytime any of my people in any of the interviews have mentioned This American Life, I can go to that person and kind of see where they mentioned it and kind of read, and then pull a select. And then I put that in with the other people who said similar. So then I can jump like, so as I'm going through editing, and I'm like, did so ever talk about this? Because all of a sudden you're like, it triggers a memory, and I'm like, like this person definitely talked about this. So I can kind of say like, or sometimes I'll even do like iTunes, like I could do like iTunes and see anyone who talked about iTunes. So I'm able to like jump and find who talked about what right away. Although I do listen to the interviews and go through all of them.
Yeah, I kind of just end up compulsively listening to them. Like that's kind of my thing. I like to hear like the phrasing of like how people put things, and I just kind of try to devote it to memory and kind of see how it hits me once I watch it a few times through. And that's like, I feel like mine's definitely way more like a feeling way about it, more than that. I mean, like that honestly sounds great to me, but I feel like I would never be able to do that.
Because what I did on the Lifer doc is I converted all the interviews into just the audio, and then as I was driving Lyft and Uber, I would listen to the interviews almost like a podcast. Just listen to them, and anytime something like jumped out at me, I'd take a screen grab on my phone, and then when I got home, I'd go back and I'd look on the time in the interview and see and make a note of it. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I use the transcripts. I'll even highlight different things and kind of like, as I'm just screening through, like, ooh, that's a good line. And it may just be a good line on paper, and then like you go listen to it in the interview, and it's like, they're kind of like, so it's like, okay, that doesn't really work. But it I don't know. I like the current movie. I have a little bit of funding from some my producer guy is a Hollywood type, and he got us some money for to kind of keep the movie going, and so we were able to hire a editor who went through, and he did this great, amazing thing, which I'm loving, this combination of the transcripts that I have, but he also went through and made selects, and at the beginning of each of his selects, he put a little card in front of each of the grouping of the groups of the things the person's talking about. So now when I find something in the transcript, I can go to his select and just like go near where the time is and just see what he said it was talking about, and like, boom, okay, there it is. And so it's sped up my as I'm thinking, like, because I do remember the interviews because I've listened to them so many times. Like when I hear something, I can go like, because I feel like I'm always worried that I'm going to leave some gold. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like something that I want to remember and I wanted to get in there because like, and it's like, oh shit. But anyway, I'm like, just curious about the process. Everyone does everything so differently. It's so interesting to hear.
Yeah, no, I have that anxiety way more about, less about interviews, because I feel like I go through and I organize them so consistently that like, that's not a worry. My worry is always like B-roll. Like when I feel like, oh, I can just probably scrub through this and it'll be fine. And I can just jump this 10 minutes because I want to get through these hundreds of tapes of it. But then like the idea that like, oh, there's gonna be something in there, so I just have to sit there and watch it. Otherwise, like I know that I'm just gonna be like, I didn't look at everything, and I know that there's like this one moment that would have been like the moment that would make this thing successful or whatever.
Do you? Oh, go ahead. You go ahead, Chris.
I know it's I gotta start kind of getting towards the wrap it up a little bit. I do have a question that's kind of semi-related. Just when I first was like learning about like you, learning about your work and your company, you're in Cleveland. My first thought, I was like, Cleveland, I wonder if he likes Bill Watterson. And then I saw that you made Draw Hard. So like, is it safe to say you're a Calvin and Hobbes, Bill Watterson fan?
Yeah, I mean, I like it. I'm more of.
See ya. Rebel out.
I love that answer.
I mean, I own like 4 volumes of it, but like my go-tos are like Daniel Klaus and Adrian Tamain, like all that kind of like 90s alt stuff. I mean, obviously really like Harvey Pekar. That's like another local guy. Crumb. Like those
I know that
all
one.
mine. Yeah. But yeah. No, I mean, Draw Hard's one of those things I'm like super proud of. Like John G's rad. He's like a local legend, and like he's like one of the realest dudes that I've ever met in my life. Like that guy is no bullshit ever, and he's full of wisdom. Like he just throws stuff down. Like you'll just go out and get a coffee with him, and you're just like, oh, okay, well that's something I'm gonna remember forever, and it's gonna change my life.
That's pretty cool. It seems to be like I kind of get the sense from both of you too. Like you're both out seeking like stories of the people who maybe the counterculture a little bit off center left or whatever. Not even politically speaking, but like, well, like I don't know, Justin Pearson. Like no one else is making that documentary, or like Anti-Flag. I think they're all deserved, or even like Draw Hard. Like, and even Fat Wreck too. Like I think that's cool too. Like like. What I always want to do with this podcast as well, I think what you guys both are doing is want to highlight good people doing good work. And I think that's something you both seem to have in common.
Well, I'm a bad person, and it's
your work sucks.
My work sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's definitely something I'm interested in, because it's, you have to, there's that business aspect of it of like, well, you need to make something that's known. Like you need to, like, it's really hard to have a movie break onto the scene when like there's nothing notable about it.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I'm going to do something that and I can't get, billable actors that like you can just like put on the cover and people are going to go see it, or like to do a narrative piece, like at the very least I want to be doing documentaries that have way lower overhead than a narrative, and like about something I care about. I'm sure Shaun, like you have to really care about these things. Otherwise, like there's no way you could have like the energy to muster to like go through this process unless you actually care about it. So it's like, it's an excuse to like meet and get to know people I admire and like expose them more and get known for something. Yeah. I mean, so like there's really no downside to it. It's a good excuse to create a relationship with someone that has like been important to you.
It's amazing to be connected. I think it's an interesting thing to be connected with something that you love, but in a creative way, and how you've like, especially with documentary, you're like, it's got to be weird when someone makes a documentary about you, right? But it's also like it's also like this thing that like, if someone makes a documentary about you, like you touch someone, or I mean, hopefully you didn't touch someone, but like
essentially,
I mean, touch them like deeply, and to the point where they're going to dedicate like a lot of time to highlighting not just the creative work that you've done, but like who the person you are in a lot of cases. I think that it's I think film more than any other kind of thing, and I'm sure you feel this way, like making music videos and stuff is great and shorts are awesome, but like this thing that you made about Anti-Flag is going to be associated with them forever. And people who like have loved Anti-Flag and they ever want to show someone why they love Anti-Flag, here's a piece of art that is about why this people who make art is great and why it should be remembered. Mm-hmm. And it like we still watch, like people still watch American Hardcore and all those documentaries about those 80s bands. Sure. Like Salad Days was huge, like the great thing about this is that this movie is going to live on that pantheon in groups that needed to be highlighted. And it's I think it's an amazing thing to do for not only the artists, and I'm talking specifically about what you did, not me in particular, but like for the fans of that. And I'm sure you've gotten so much email. I know you've gotten email, you've gotten messages from people telling them how important the movie is to them and how important Anti-Flag is. And the fact that you did this, like people will love you for doing it. The people who love Anti-Flag will love you for doing it because you showed a light on the thing that they loved. And I think that's the power of a documentary. There's many powers of documentary. But I do think that like highlighting, I mean, it's important to highlight the stuff that Anti-Flag talks about. Mm-hmm. But like not everything. I think it's interesting that Chris said, and I know you got to wrap up soon, but that like Anti-Flag's story is it's important. You know what I mean? It's an important thing that people should know about.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's the funny thing, though. Is like I feel like my experience in approaching people about documentary is, one, they're always skeptical of like why you would want to do it, and then
Right.
they think like, no, don't do this. I don't. There's no reason for there to be a documentary on me, and then they end up seeing it, or like in probably pretty close to its final form, and they're just like, oh god, this is going to be the thing, you know. So I mean, it's weird, you know. I've never gone through it, so like I don't know what that
Me
feels
either.
like, but it's definitely got to be a weird emotional roller coaster, and I'm always like trying to be cognizant of like hand holding through it. Like, I'm not trying to exploit you, I'm doing this because I admire you, or I'm at least interested in you, and like I need to like and it's a thing that like I feel like is worth my time, and like hopefully you can see that at the end of this, like because I think there's a lot of defensiveness. I mean, it's got to be a really weird thing to know that like, oh cool, there's going to be like a final document on like my life.
Right.
So
It's
crazy.
also
Yeah.
it's also so much pressure on us, I would say,
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
to be
yeah,
like,
for sure.
okay, I'm telling someone. Did you see Hamilton? I don't know if you saw Hamilton.
I haven't watched it yet. I mean, I
Uh,
love to be
there's a
clipping
there's just
stuff.
like there's a thing about you. There's a song there. It's like you can't you can't control who lives or dies, who tells your story. You know, what I mean, you're never gonna.
Oh
Mhm.
shit.
But when you like taking on that thing, like it's an interesting place to be in, because there's a you want to show them authentically, but that means you can't just be positive all the time.
Mhm.
Like, I mean, doesn't mean you try to hit piece or anything, but you have to show, like, to have any kind of weight. So it's like you have to, like, how much do I show? And also I give it to the people, like if you choose the right subjects, I feel like the right kind of people they wouldn't want someone to be necessarily do a puff piece about them. They want someone to, you know, be an honest piece, you know, hopefully positive.
Yeah,
But like an honest piece.
yeah, and I mean, yeah, and I don't think you need to do like muckraking. Like, I don't think you have to go in with the intent of just like, oh, I'm gonna undo this person. Like, just ask them challenging questions, and like everyone has character flaws, and like they're gonna reveal it themselves. And I think that like you can see plenty of like anti-vice character flaws, or like when Don't Fall in Love with Yourself comes out, like Justin or anyone else is there. I mean, like to be an artist means that you're probably a fairly weird person, in the sense that like, you have trauma that you're trying to get out of your system, so I mean, I think it's all there. I don't think you need to go into it and be like, this fucking guy, like, and like try to get into like really like try to make a hit piece on them. Like, if you talk to someone long enough, you're going to see patterns in them, go like, oh, this person's being avoidant, oh, this person's being really judgmental here, like, and it's all going to show up regardless.
It's interesting because, like, one of the criticisms, like, I mean, I feel like our movie was pretty fairly well received, but the criticism that I think I got the most was like, oh, you did a puff piece on Fat Records, like, and I'm like, there's a whole section that calls out Fat Mike for like his drug use and how it's a little flippant, and like there's someone that's literally challenging him on it.
Yeah.
I mean, he gets to say his piece, but I feel like when you watch, and also there's a part where a band straight up says that like Punk Voter was like a, what do you call it, a vanity project, like
Oh yeah.
from Propaganda,
Yeah.
like straight up, like, it's like, how is it a puff piece? Like, how is it a puff piece? I mean, I'm hashing out like two comments on
This one's really hurt, huh?
No, it's like, I mean, I feel like there's definitely criticism of the movie. I feel like there's not a real strong 3-part structure. It's kind of like, I feel like it flows well, but it doesn't have a real strong, there's not a real big narrative dip. There's not a real strong, deeply emotional part of the movie.
I didn't see that on the back cover as the selling point.
I know, but I think that
I mean, I don't personally know Mike well, but I can't imagine that he could get that self-reflective to actually get to that place where you would have that sequence. I mean, I think that's a thing to know about his character going into that movie.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
I'm not saying he's not an unemotional person, but I just feel like my read on him is that he would probably just try to avoid it, or like make a joke of it or whatever. Like, every single time he probably would get up to something, he would like crack a joke or like do a lateral move conversationally to like get away from whatever the thing was. Like I don't feel like you're going to get that big exposing like, here's the thing, let's talk about it for 10 minutes.
I think he was. I'll tell you, like, I just don't think he's that kind of guy, like you said.
Yeah.
But he is, like, he gave it. Like, I mean, you've seen the movie. He's like authentic. Like he's self-aware. I feel like he's a pretty self-aware dude. I mean, I'd say he's really self-aware actually. With that Cokie the Clown shit. That's some self-aware shit. Being like, I'm a bad person. Some girl got raped and we did nothing about it. I'm a I snuffed my mother out with a pillow, kind of shit. Like, man, like, that guy. I think he's a really good dude that has lived some heavy life.
Mm-hmm. But I think the way that he can get to those places is that he has the art in between him and that. Yeah. Where it's when it's just him and a camera. I don't know that all of those things would come out. You know,
no,
if you're trying to interview him.
Well, and I think that wasn't the movie we were making. We weren't making a Fat Mike documentary. You know, we were making a Fat Records documentary, which is explicitly tied to him. But like, what I hope we did was show that it's much more than him. Yeah, that's the whole idea. Is like this is not just a guy. This is a whole team of people, a family. Cliche, but man, I want to say I'm really stoked for our roundtable.
Yeah, me too.
On October 2nd with Taylor Morden from Pick It Up documentary and The Last Blockbuster, and Scott Crawford from Salad Days and the Cream documentary, and John here. John's gonna be with us, and I'm really stoked for that. We can hopefully we'll talk more with the other guys about like, a lot of filmmaking experience stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
Chris, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to start doing your outro, but I felt like
I'm glad someone did. No, this is great, man.
I just wanted to make sure we plugged the event coming up.
Oh yeah, I'll put that in the beginning as well when I do the intro as well. Yeah, it's good. I mean, you guys are a little bit in a different spot than I am, because like maybe you're probably at home and you're just like living your normal life, but like to me, I'm just like a guy and like, oh, I have a podcast and it's done it for long enough and it's kind of opened little doors and it's been cool. But like you guys get to actually go and meet these people and have these experiences and present that art. Like I've been a fan of documentaries for years, and I'm such a huge fan of both of your work. So I'm honored to be a part of this table, because all those movies, like I'm now learning of your work now, John, but I've been going back and like big fan, man. Good shit.
Yeah,
thank you. I appreciate it.
I didn't want to fan out on you too hard in the beginning because it's weird, but it's. But
when we were
I was so touched by your documentary. I was so. It was that scene finding out his parents were like my parents. I'm not even kidding. It like it was like I was like, oh, that's kind of weird. And like I didn't think I'd feel hopeful, but you knocked it out of the park. Well fucking done. I hope. I saw you had Tim from Rise Against plugging it, and obviously Tom Morello's in it, and like looks like you're teaming up with All Press. Let's hope this COVID has a positive effect on VOD.
Yeah, yeah, fingers crossed. I mean, there is a 2020 bump happening that everyone's talking about, where all of the major studios or even medium studios are kind of pushing all their slates back, and so there's just a gulf.
Right.
Like no Marvel movies came out this year.
Right.
And so
are you a Marvel fan? Because we could all come back and do a whole Marvel episode.
Oh, we'll do that. Oh, never mind. He hates Marvel. He's a Marvel. He's like, man.
Yeah, no, I'm an elitist. No, it's fine. No, they're objectively well-made movies that are good.
Oh man, the dodge! Wow, that was so.
I'm not a film person. Yeah,
he doesn't like the like. It's a different thing. I just think it's a different thing.
Yeah, I mean, I love them.
They won me over when they brought in Taika Waititi and he had to make one. I'm like, I'm all about this, because now Taika Waititi is going to get to make whatever he wants for the rest of his life.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that they should definitely be doing more of that. Like, I think the way that they could pull me in is giving that's a more of an authorial voice. Like,
well, that's what's happening with the all the next slate. They're like the first Asian woman is going to helm one. She's an independent filmmaker. That's what they did with Jon Favreau did with The Mandalorian. Go look at the directors of The Mandalorian. They're all independent people that got brought in to do that.
Oh, nice.
Like,
gotcha.
Like it's one of the cool things. I think that the new, like, once Kevin Feige took over, he seeks out independent filmmakers, like even the Russo brothers who did all that, they started on, they were doing
Community.
Arrested Development and Community.
Yeah.
And they did, and they were Slam Dance guys. They got, they
well,
were,
yeah, well, and those guys are from Cleveland too. Their next movie is called called Cherry. It's based on this amazing
oh,
book,
that's right, yeah.
that's written by this like Afghanistan war vet with PTSD who robbed banks, and it's like it's auto fiction, so like it's just like, this isn't a memoir, it's a novel, because there's definitely crimes that I committed in this. But it's an amazing book. I highly recommend it. It's great, and I don't think it's just because I know like every location he's talking about, like in the city.
Right.
Nice.
No, I'm just saying, like I think I see what they do as like a different thing, and I think that needs to be there, and that there also needs to be, like, I love what you said. Like right now, this is the space for independent films to fill the void. And I mean, I'm like I want to get something out as quickly as possible, but I'm not going to rush anything. But I'm really excited about your screening. Like I'm going to do the screening, even though I've seen the movie. I want to screen it and see like how the thing works that you're doing.
The Q&A.
Yeah, like how that whole plays out.
I think that's the future.
We'll see. You know, I mean, that's pretty brand new as like a platform, so we're taking a chance on it.
I think it's a good experiment. I think that from my experience, the thing with the Fat Wreck Doc is back in April, we hit like it had a resurgence because everyone was on lockdown.
Yeah, we did a watch party. We teamed up with this website, See You Live, so we watched Spider-Verse with people, and it sounds kind of lame, like just watching a movie on your computer with your little box. And I cannot tell you how much fucking fun we had doing it. And like, I kind of made fun of like younger generations for like Twitch and all that, but that seems to be what the younger kids have been doing, just like this, while like playing video games and stuff. So when I saw you're doing that with the Q&A with the director, like, I mean, I watched all of your. I mean, I would have watched this flat if I never met you, but like, I'm probably never going to be someone who spends money to watch a premiere movie at home, unless maybe it's my own ego, but unless there's a part where I can interact with the people doing it. Because I was like, I'll wait for Amazon Prime. But like, now I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
And I very likely wouldn't be able to come to the small theater if it came through because I have a kid and life like that. So I'm really excited to see that that you get to team up with All Press and everything. I'm sure I know I'll talk to you guys on October 2nd, and but let's stay in touch, man. Like anything you do, come back on anytime.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to.
You three, I'll just sit back here and listen to you guys talk gear. I can listen to you guys talk about that shit forever. Where can people find you online? Shaun, you want to go first? And then Jon, let us know.
I'm open-ended films, pretty much everything. Instagram, Twitter, our website. But I will say, you should go check out Jon's Turnstyle Films .com, because his shit is fucking badass. All his shit looks so good. His Vimeo, his all his entire the Turnstyle cinematic universe. Like everything is just like easy to find. His website's well done. I was able to I went on a deep dive and just started looking at all his stuff and kind of being like, damn man, this guy's like just prolific. Just so many cool videos and just really there's a portion of his website, there's like fun stuff, and if you go there's like all these outtakes and like just like really cool stuff. I think definitely check out his website.
Right. Thanks.
Shaun, did you
appreciate it,
Jon?
You can find me at Turnstyle Films on pretty much everything. Turnstyle spelled with a Y, not an I, so not like the band. And then all my personal stuff is Jon Nix Film, JONNIX Film. And that's it.
Oh, awesome. Thank you guys so much. This was fucking awesome.